recording. I just want to ask.
Okay, before I start recording, okay. Hold on.
I just quickly want to ask a question before you start recording. Because
so when we talk about business process modeling notation from where we stopped the last time, we want to look at leveraging Visio because this is the best tool as far as, of course, the body of knowledge has identified it. This is seen as the best tool that you can use in modeling the process. And of course, it is one of the modeling language, just like we spoke about. So talking about BPMN, here we are with Visio, Microsoft Visio. And of course, we have a different version. The one that best solved this problem is the one with version 2.0. Version 2.0. If you have a BPMN with version 1.0, you may not be able to carry out, you may not even be able to identify or find the BPMN stencils. So this is the interface of Visio. And of course, how do I identify or how do I get to the BPMN stencils and I can carry out my diagram? Maybe I can have time to walk you through everything we have on the screen, but let me see how I can do justice to that. So you can just come to more shapes. If you go to more shapes, you can see under more shapes, we have got, that is if you're on your Visio now, you can come to more shapes. When you get to more shapes, you will identify that there are different shapes here that you can find. But I think the one that we are going into should be, if I'm not mistaken now, should be flowchart. So when you get to flowchart, you can even see BPMN is even embedded under flowchart because it is showing the flow of a chart. So now if you click on flowchart, there are different templates that you can use in drawing the flowchart. And the one we are going to is the BPMN basic shapes. So all you just need to do is when you come to your more shapes, you click on flowcharts, and then you can click on BPMN basic shapes. If you click on BPMN basic shapes, then you have your stencils, of course, being displayed. And with these stencils, we can start our modeling. We can start to model. Of course, you have been able to identify the process you want to draw. The question is, how do I elicit this information? Can I elicit this information on this process via interview? Can I just map in the presence of the stakeholder? I'm sure you have answers to that. If you are brilliant enough to draw your process map in the presence of the stakeholder, and if you have got time, because sometimes time can be a constraint. So if you have got time, why not? You can share your screen and you can have your process drawn out together with the stakeholders, the actors on the call. If not, you can put your questions together. Once you have been able to identify the actors, you can easily ask the actors their steps. And once those steps are communicated to you, you can have it documented in your notes. And of course, after the call, you can leverage the notes and probably the recording of that session to then sit back and model your process. And then it is only you that you're on the call, or only you carrying out the task. Once you are done modeling it, then you can always go back for validation on what you have drawn. So to a large extent, it depends on whichever method works for you. And I believe that even that can even make it faster, when you elicited the information or the requirement, and of course, you went back to put the model together. You can bring the stakeholders into a workshop again, and you can show them what you have drawn. Everyone can validate it. And if there are adjustments, the adjustments are being carried out. So let's go for it. Now, I have been able to identify the process. I have also been able to identify the actors. Where do I start from? As long as you are modeling, it is important for you to bring in this swim lane. So the first question here is, what is a swim lane? Don't forget, we spoke about the swim lane in the last class. That is, the swim lane is a lane that we use in representing each of the actors. So in as much as we have got actors, we have to put each of the actors in a swim lane. So where is the swim lane? You can see the pool or the lane at the bottom of course, my stencils. So I can easily drag it into the canvas. I can drag the swim lane into the canvas. And of course, I can size it. I can make it bigger. I can make it longer as long as I want. So I can bring as many swim lane as possible to the what? I can bring as many swim lane as possible into the canvas, depending on how many swim lane I've got. And don't forget, even from the last class, we said something. We said that you should always ensure that it is the swim lane now of the initiator, that is whoever it is that is starting the process. It is the swim lane that should be at the very top. So you don't want to make a mistake in doing that. Always ensure that the swim lane of the initiator is at the top whenever you are modeling a process. So the question here is, how many actors do we have? Then we can proceed to the next question. These actors, are they part of the organization or not? Because there are rules to how we put together our swim lane. An actor that is outside of the organization, the swim lane should not be connected together because those actors are outside of the organization. They are not within the organization. For example, I've got a gas station. So automatically, customers will come to the gas station, isn't it? To come and fill gas. As a customer, I am not part of that organization. I am external to the organization. So if a process modeling is to be carried out, the process modeling of the customer should be different or should not be joined with the swim lane of the organization. Now, in that said organization, there are staffs that are working there. We can have probably the admin, we can have the maybe clerk. I'm just thinking on the top of my head now. We can have the maybe accountant. We can have, so this set of guys that I've been able to identify, their swim lane can be connected because they are working for the organization. So what am I trying to say? As long as you are not part of an organization, your what? Your swim lane should be external and should not be connected. Let me give another example. A student that is applying for a university, afresh, this is your first time of applying to the university. As a matter of fact, you are external to the university. But in that same university, we have got maybe chancellor, we have got maybe exam officer, we have got different posts in the university. So all these posts, if they are acting within that said process, their swim lanes can then be connected. But for a student that is just applying for the very first time, that student's swim lane should not be connected to the organization swim lane. Now, if that is the case, then how do we then connect the swim lane? All you need to do is when you drag in your swim lane, ensure that it connects with one and look out for the red line. That is the beauty of Visio. Once you can identify the red line, then you can leave it. Automatically, it will connect to one another. And of course, Visio has got the understanding that if you are connecting to swim lane, then you should be able to give us the title of that organization. Because Visio has been able to identify that, okay, now that you have two swim lanes connected, this looks more like an organization, and this is talking about actors that are working in the same organization. That is why automatically you can see that title has been given to the two swim lane that has been connected. And as many swim lane as you want to connect, you can add another swim lane to this. All you just look out for is the red line. You can see I've been able to add 3 swim lanes. I can add as many swim lanes as possible. This depends on what? It depends on the case study that I'm trying to model. It depends on the process that I'm trying to model. Now, having put together this diagram, of course, I now know that, okay, for each of the actors, I can give these actors a what? I can give this actor a swim lane. And if I've given an actor a swim lane, I can also do what? I can also, at the end of the day, name the actors. Okay, that's fine, Ben. We can also name the actors. Now, we keep talking about each of the actors. How do we now identify what an actor is doing? Don't forget, from the last class, I said whatever it is that the actor is doing should be captured using a verb noun, documented on a task. Now, we can see the stencil for task. You can easily bring in your stencil for task and put in a particular swim lane. So this task now will be documented using the verb noun format. That is the best principle. Is the standard. That if you are documenting a task, you use the verb noun format. For example, upload document, send document, delete item, review document, review file, whatever it is, download image, whatever it is, make sure it is documented in a verb noun format. The reason is because anyone looking at your process should be able to understand without you even explaining what you have put together, because your modeling is expected to be a flow. It is not a flow chart, but it is expected to be a flow. Now, so that means for each of the actors, I can easily bring in their task. And then there is another law in modeling a process. To a large extent, your process should keep moving forward. Let me put it that way. Your process should keep moving forward because it is a flow. On no occasion should, let's take, for example, this swim lane A and swim lane B. If you are to connect, maybe we are going to come there. If you are to connect, it should always connect forward. Of course, we can still connect this. Okay, there are laws to the connection too. I'm coming there. I'm just trying to take it step after another. So in each swim lane, you are going to find the task box. Another thing of interest that you are going to find is what we call the decision gate. And I'll pause here to explain some few things. Now, before I go to the decision gate or continue with the decision gate, this task has got different types. I can use the types to explain what is happening as far as that task is concerned. Is the task done manually? I want to show that this task is done manually. There is a way I can represent it on this diagram. I want to show that this task has got to do with sending a message. There is a way I can show it on this diagram. And how do I go about it? All I need to do is to right-click on task, and I can see task type. That's where I'm going. So if you look at the task type, you can see the different tasks that I can give my task. So I can call it a service. So that means that particular task has got to do with a service that is being provided. I can call it receive. That means the task has got to do with receiving. I can call it test, send. If it is a send, that means that task has got to do with sending, of course, an item, an information, whatever it is. Different, what's it called now? Different labeling can be given to my task. So if I click on, maybe I should just focus on receive and send, because that's what we use most times. If you click on receive, you can see there is a what? There is a symbol that has been attached. Let me zoom in so you can see. There's a symbol that has been attached. So anybody looking at this can easily identify that, oh, okay, this task has got to do with receiving. If I change it to send, you can see it's a bit darker. Anyone looking at this can easily identify that, oh, okay, this task is talking about sending out a document. If it is a manual, if it is done manually, you can easily identify, of course, the manual. You can see two things has been achieved here. I'm saying a document is being sent, and of course, even the document is being sent manually. That is what I've represented on this particular task. But most times, in order to make your process understandable, easy, it is always advised that you keep it simple. Don't make it complex. And I keep telling you, if you are a business analyst, you can't teach a 5-year-old kid. You can't draw a process that a 5-year, I'm sure you 5-year-old, you know how funny they can be. A 5-year-old cannot understand your process. You have not started. So that is how simple your process should be. So let's just move on quickly. Let's move on quickly to the decision gate, because we have got different decision gates. We've got different types of decision gates, and it is important that we discuss this. So let me just open a new tab, and I will explain this decision gate in my own simple way. Now, we have the first decision gate that is called the either or decision. The either or decision. Now, what do we mean by either or? What we mean by either or, please, before I continue, do you have any question? Please don't hesitate to ask question. Hello. It's meant to be a collaborative session. Do you have any question, or are you clear? Do you understand? You're clear?
Yes.
Fantastic. Any other person?
It's clear.
It's clear. Brilliant.
It's very clear,
person?
very clear. Fire down, fire down, fire down.
Say I should fire down. Okay, I'll do just that. Different types of gateway. Now, we have got the, I call it the, yes.
Sorry, I think I have a question.
Oh,
you
okay,
know, for this external and internal process map, I'm not so very used to that one, but I heard you mention that you have to put a title. So, do you have to, like, where do you put the title? Maybe it's an external company. Where do you put the title?
No. Okay. When I mean external, we are talking about the swim lane here.
Yes.
Where I said the actor is not within the organization. Are you with me now?
Yes.
So if the actors are within an organization.
Okay, I understand now. Okay,
okay.
I understand. Yeah.
Brilliant. So now we have the either or gateway. The either or gateway is explaining to you something. And what is the either or gateway trying to explain to you? It can either be represented with no, what's it called now? So even me, sometimes I struggle with these guys, so don't mix it up. It can be very funny at times. So what is the either or gateway telling us? The either or gateway is telling you that there are, what's it called now? There are two options. And in these two options, it is only one of the options. It is only one route that you can go. I'll give you a very simple example. You are going out with your friend, for example. You have got two shirts that you can wear, a white shirt and a black shirt. So you need to make a decision. What color of shirt am I wearing? Is it a white shirt or is it the black shirt? And then you can go via one route. So that means if you wear the white shirt, of course, the black shirt sit at home. And if you decide to wear the black shirt, the white shirt sit at home. So in this situation, whenever a decision is to be made, okay, let me just do the needful. So whenever a decision is to be made and only one route is valid, when that decision is completed, then it is represented with the either or gateway. That is, it is either this or the other one. The two routes cannot be valid at the same time. That is what the either or gateway is talking about. I hope you are all following me. Do you have any question?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, it's straightforward so far.
Okay, all right. Let's go. Another type.
Sorry, Mr. Ben.
Yes,
Before
sir.
you go ahead, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Now, if you check different BPMN or even Visio, you will see that they are different. That naming is different. So you could see exclusive. Then
Data with markup. That is the either or.
yes. So that's what I was trying to call. So in place of some people see this, and they may not see that or. So yeah. So you could mention that.
Thank you. Any other question? Any other question? Any other question? So I want to pick up anyone. It can be very funny. Of course, we have got more than 5, but I'm just trying to pick 5 that are very essential as far as the session is concerned. Let me go to this guy. It's called the parallel gateway. Now you will come across it, either you like it or not. Now, what is the parallel gateway trying to explain to yourself? The parallel gateway is telling you that, of course, most times this activity may not be carried out by a human. It's important that I say that, because it is not possible for a human to do more than 2 things at the same time. But when it comes to systems, systems can do 2 things at the same time, probably in some cases, maybe even more. So when we want to explain about a particular decision or an action that has got to do with doing 2 or more things at the same time, then the parallel gateway best describes that. For example, you can see a process where an invoice is generated, or how do I do it now? Okay, an invoice is sent to the customer, and at the same time, it is sent to maybe a particular department in the organization for record purpose. Now, that single action gives 2 different outcomes. Let me put it that way. By just maybe one single click, the customer receives the notification, the maybe sales department or the delivery department also receive that same notification. That is doing 2 things at the same time. So in order for you to express that, for you to display that on your diagram, then you can use the parallel gateway, because the parallel gateway simply defines that, oh, okay, what is happening here is that, oh, with a click, money is being sent to David. That same money is being sent to maybe Pere. That same money is being sent to Ben. That same money is being sent to, with just a single click. So that is doing 2 or more things at the same time. And like I explained, most times you will always find these with systems. Am I explaining? Are you guys getting it? Or are you confused in any way? Because we are going to another type of gateway now. Are you there?
It's clear.
Fantastic. I like the fact that it is clear, but you will give me 1 minute. I need to do something very quickly. So not forgetting here, when we mentioned that this is called the either or, it can be called the exclusive data with marker. And then we have the next one, which was identified as the parallel gateway. So we can see it here, the parallel gateway. Now, the third one I want to speak about is what we call the inclusive gateway. Inclusive. Now, inclusive gateway is interesting, and I'll tell you why. Inclusive gateway is almost in the same family with the either or gateway, but just a simple difference. Now, what the inclusive gateway is telling us, that is the decision that is being made here, is that at least one of these routes is valid. On the either or gateway, you cannot go via the 2 routes. You will only go via 1 route. It's either you are a registered customer or you are a new customer. You can't be a registered customer and a new customer at the same time. No, your path will only go via 1 way. But for the inclusive gateway, what the inclusive gateway is telling us is that, let's take, for example, we can have 2 or 3 outcomes. So you can at least be 1. So you can either even go via the 2 routes. You can go via the 3 routes at the end of the day. as far as the inclusive gateway is concerned, but at least one of the routes must be valid. That is what the inclusive gateway is saying. And I hope somebody is following. Hello? Is somebody following? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
So that is what the inclusive gateway is saying. Inclusive gateway is saying that either you like it or not, one of the routes, I don't know what's happening to my Visio, but it's fine. The Visio will be okay. I'm just trying to explain. I'm just trying to use this to, I don't know where the arrow of the head has gone to, that's traveled, but that's fine. At least, let's take, for example, you have got 3 valid routes from this particular event or from this particular decision. So what the inclusive gateway is saying is that at least one of the routes is valid. So that means you can leverage the 2 routes, or you can even be a participant on the 3 routes. The question is, Ben, can you give a typical example of that? Let me think of something quickly. Why am I finding it difficult? At least one of the routes is valid. It is different from the either-or gateway. The either-or gateway is talking about you can't, at any given point, be a part of the 2 outcomes. It is either you are putting on a black shirt or you are putting on a white shirt. It's talking about a shirt that is to be wear. It's very simple explanation. But for the inclusive gateway, it is telling us that at least one of the routes must be valid. So that means you can go via the 2 routes at the same time if you choose to. And in some cases, yes, go for it. You want to say something?
Mr. Ben, I'm trying to think of an example, and something came to my mind.
Okay.
Like if you go to a shop to you go to a shop to purchase something. When you get there, there's a possibility. The truth is that before you can take that item out of that shop, you must make payments.
Yes.
So what are the options of payments available? So it's possible, okay, you have cash, and maybe the item is meant to be £15, and you have only £5. Okay, you can decide to say, okay, I'll make payment of cash of £5 and do
at the same time use my card. Fantastic.
Yes, and use my card.
That's
so but the truth is that you have to make payment. But it could be by card, it could be by transfer, it could even be by what other possibility that you can make. It can be more than 2 methods, but the possibility is that you must make one out of all of these 3 or out of these 4. You must make one.
That's a brilliant one. That's a brilliant one. So you being a customer of a store, a payment must be made. So the question is, how do you want to make the payment? You can make the payment either via card, you can make the payment by cash, or maybe you can even do a transfer. 3 outcomes. We are getting to ensure that a payment is made. So you can choose any of these. At least you must use one of these 3. You can choose to use 2, just like she said. Maybe you have got a cash of £2, and then you can use your card to balance the £3. Or you have got a cash of £2, you want to pay £2 with your card, and you want to do a transfer of £1. Fantastic. I think someone also put on the chat, you can be a citizen of 2 countries. At least, as a matter of fact, you need to be a citizen of a particular country, either you like it or not. So, and in some cases, you can even have, passport of 2 or more countries. So, of course, these are valid points, and that makes a lot of sense. If that is clear, then we can go to the next one, which is the event-based gateway. You see these other 2. I may not dwell much on it because sometimes they can be confusing as well. So let's go. Let me try to extend this, and I don't want it to. Okay, yeah. Event-based gateway. Okay. Let's just do it one after another then. If you won't allow me. I'm sure we are learning something today, and I've not been wasting your time on the call. Are we?
Not
Fantastic. Don't worry. I've got I think I have this case study that I'll share with you. I don't know where it is now, but I'll definitely share it with you guys because it's good. It will help you. Like, okay, I've not really spoken about how to analyze a process. I'll do that. Maybe that's where I will wrap up this session. Okay, whatever. Okay, event-based gateway. Events, I think is yes. Now, what is the event-based gateway telling us? The event-based gateway is a very funny gateway. And what it's telling us is that, of course, a decision will be reached depending on the outcome of a particular event. That is, you can only be the customer of a bank if we have been able to validate your address and we have been able to validate your identity. So your identity needs to be validated as well as your address. If your address is not validated, but your identity is validated, we can't make you a customer of the bank. So there are two things, there are two checks that are needed to be done. And the checks here are you a valid human being? Let me put it that way. Do you have a sort of identification? Yes. Okay. That event has been sorted. The second event here is, do you have an address? Because if you have an ID and you don't have an address, then we are not making you a customer of the bank. But if you have an address, you have an ID, you have completed these two checks, then you are worthy to be a customer of the bank. Let me just use that simple example to explain the event-based gateway. Because for you to be our customer, these two events must be carried out. Number one, validation of your ID. Number two, validation of your address. So for you to be a customer, then these two events must be completed successfully. If not, we can't make you a customer. Is somebody following?
Yes, yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
it does. But what about if it's more than two? Is it minimum of two, or it could be, yeah.
Then we are now going to talk about the complex gateway. The complex gateway is what will answer your question. Now, and that's just the basic difference. Now, the complex gateway, let me just draw it. Thank God that you asked the question. I like it when we are engaging like this. It makes the class very easy. Because I would have still been dragging within my head. Ben, are you sure they understand what you're trying to say? But for you to ask that question, that means you have understood what I've said. So let's go. So that's why, because they know that you will ask that question, that is why there is a complex. Now, what is this guy trying to tell us? This guy is trying to tell us that for the event base, it is just two events. But this complex gateway, understand that we can have more than two. We can have three. And for this event base, do you have your ID? Do you have, are you a, what's it called now? Do you have an ID? Do you have an address? Can we think of another one now? Another check that can be done.
Are you a resident in the country?
Are you a resident in the country? 3 questions that needs to be answered. Now, the complex gateway now says that whatever it is, if you are using a complex gateway, you must define what happened at every point. What if the person only has a valid ID, a resident, and not an address? Then we are now going to write it. This is what will happen. So because the outcome of that event depends on whatever rule that has been put in place. So if you are a resident and you have got an ID, but you don't have an address, what then happens? It must be clearly defined. What if you have an address, you have got a valid ID, but you are not a resident? What then happens? So that is what the complex gateway is trying to explain. So that is why they have termed it complex gateway. It is complex because we have more than 2 options here, but each of these options, we now need to define what happens. What if customer does not satisfy the 3 category? What if customer does not satisfy, because as a matter of fact, you can't have more than 3 category. I'm sure you that asked the question, you can see the point from this gateway. At the end of the day, a task will come into this gateway. And from this task that is coming into this gateway, you can't have more than 3 routes. So I'm sure that answers your question. So that you're not like, what if we have 4? If we have 4, that means you have to break that task into 2. It is too complex. So does that answer your question? Are we on the same page? So complex gateway is trying to explain that if we have 3 outcomes, or if we have 3 events that are needed to be carried out, then the question is, what happens probably when 2 of these criteria are satisfied, or what happens when the 3 are satisfied? If the 3 are satisfied, then customer can easily have access. For example, you want to log in to your application. You need your username and password. That is one route. You need maybe 2-factor authentication. That is another route. You need maybe a mobile validation again. For example, they want to send, apart from the 2-factor authentication, they still need to validate your phone number. So you can see that is 3 routes that you can use to have access. Maybe for those of you that have blockchain and what have you, you want to secure your property to a large extent. So you have decided to use this 3 lock. So the question is, what happens if it is only 2 that I'm able to find? Does it mean that if I can find 2 and I can't find the 3rd one, I won't gain access? So whatever it is that will now happen must be clearly defined. If at the end of the day, we only get 2 and the 3rd one, we don't have maybe access to that, how do you go about it? All those rules must be properly defined. And that is why it is called a complex gateway. Is it clear? If you understand the different types of gateway, then our lives become easier, because from what we have explained so far, we have been able to explain the either-or gateway. That is called the, let me use their name now for those of you that may be writing. That is called the exclusive data with marker. It can be exclusive data with marker or the exclusive data. So you can see that on the screen. There is one that we didn't put anything, and there's one that we have X. So you can either use any of the 2 to represent the exclusive data with marker. It is called the either-or gateway. Then we have the parallel gateway, where 2 or more events happen at the same time. And I tell you that this can only be done by system and not humans. And then another thing that we have here is the inclusive gateway. I said for the inclusive gateway, at least 1 route is valid. And someone gave a brilliant example. You are in a store, you want to make payments. You can either make the payment via your card, via cash, or even via transfer. But at least you must make the payment using 1 of these 3 options that has been given to you, inclusive gateway. And then we have the event-based gateway. This event-based gateway is talking about an outcome that is dependent on 2 events. So the question is, what are the outcome of those 2 events? The outcome of those 2 events will determine what happens next. And we have the complex gateway that has got at least more than 3 outcomes at the end of the day. So the question is, on these 3 routes that we have from this particular decision that is to be made, what happens if 2 of these criteria are met? What happens if it is only 1? That maybe, for example, out of the 3, you only have access to username and password. You don't have 2-factor authentication. You don't have phone verification. Then you don't have access to that page. That is the decision. Oh, you only have 2-factor authentication. You have login and password. Then probably you need to place a call. They need to validate your identity online. Whatever it is that is the decision, it must be clearly spelled out. Oh, what they want is you have the 2-factor authentication, you have the phone verification, and you have your username and password. Then grant access to account. So you can see it's clearly defined. If you have the 3, grant access to account. If you have the 2, place a phone call for verification. If you have 1, no even option for call at all, because at least you must have more than 1. You must have more than 1 in order for you to get to the next stage. So if these are the, I'm just giving an example. So if these are the various outcomes, then we can always leverage this for the complex gateway. So this explains the 5 most used gateway. But if you ask me, the most commonly used one is the first one, which is the either or gateway. So does that make sense? Yes. I want to believe it's a yes. It does. Okay.
Yeah.
So that takes us to the process itself that we are modeling. So we are back to the process now. So now, after I've been able to put this process together, Ben, I've been able to identify the task of each of the actors, and I've been able to represent the different decisions that are on the process. There is a place where we keep talking process analysis. How do I go about analyzing a process? And of course, maybe, I don't know, maybe that will be a question for another day because it's already 8 o'clock. So one thing that I just want to add quickly here is that if you have a birth certificate, you can only be a citizen if you are born in, okay, I think these are just contributions. Okay, now let me just add this quickly and then I'll run. When we have the swim lane, you can see that the swim lanes, we have got 4 that are connected and we have 1 that is external. How do we connect tasks in the swim lane? Or how do we in a particular swim lane, you use the sequence flow to connect one task to another or to connect task to a decision. You use the what? You use the sequence flow. So in a given swim lane, so if there is an activity in any swim lane, best practice, you use the sequence flow to connect activities in a swim lane. So let's take, for example, here, because if this is what we have up there, we cannot have this guy here. This guy cannot start here. This guy will start, worst case scenario, below this second guy. So now, how can we connect this swim lane A to swim lane B? Knowing fully well that they are not connected. Can we still use the sequence flow? No. What are we going to use? We are going to use the message flow. That is the difference between the message flow and the sequence flow. So the message flow, to a large extent, connect what now? Connect together swim lanes that are external to one another. For those of you that will be drawing, maybe you encounter this my simple problem. What do? You can easily select these two guys, and come here and do auto align. I don't have time for wala. I don't have time for stress. So I've automatically aligned it. I move on because you can struggle with it while you are trying to put your process together. The line is not aligning. All you need to do is to select it and come to align, and then you leverage the auto align functionality. It will automatically align the diagram for you. So I've explained to you the connections. I've been able to explain the sequence flow and the message flow. You make use of the message flow when you are relating with an external swim lane. But let's take, for example, Ben, what if we want to connect this swim lane? So let me do another example here. So let's take, for example, this participant B. We still have this task connected. And then we want to connect to a swim lane that is connected to it. So Ben, what do we use? Are we going to use the message flow or are we going to use the sequence flow? Anybody that wants to answer the question, what are we going to use? Are we using the sequence flow or the message flow?
Sequence flow.
Sequence flow. God bless you. So you use the sequence flow. Why? Because the swim lanes are what? The swim lanes are connected. And that is where I'll be drawing the curtain today because of our time. Does that make sense? If it is a yes, of course, I want to believe that with this, you can be able to put a process modeling together. So thank you very much for joining, and